Hello everyone, welcome once again to the vast and ominous comic book vault. I'm Captain Logan, and it's time for new acquisitions once again. Today we're going to talk about 6 brand new comic books. 5 of them are Marvel books. I don't know what it is, lately the Marvel books really bunch up, and then I got weeks where I don't have very much Marvel. I know also Dan has quite a bit to talk about at the end of the show, and I know he probably has some more Marvel for us as well when he does books Captain Logan doesn't read. But right now, we're going to jump into my one non-Marvel book today, and it's IDW. This is Star Trek The Next Generation Hive number 3. This is the third of a 4-issue miniseries all about the Borg and some fun, crazy time travel stuff, just as I came to expect from Brandon Braga on the various Star Trek series. This is really kind of what I would have expected. Is it a lot of fun? Yes. Is there a great deal of substance? Not really. But that's okay. I'm having a lot of fun with this series, and as I say a lot with Star Trek series from IDW, I just wish it was a little bit longer and there was a little bit more time to flesh stuff out. Braga does have a good sense sometimes of the kind of traditional Star Trek moral dilemmas, and because he's writing Star Trek, he feels the need to kind of hint at them here and there, but because we have this kind of short series where all when I say they, there's actually a number of writers on this. Braga plotted this, but we've also got Fickett and Metalis actually putting the story together. Really, their duties seem to be mostly get us from point A to point B to point C by the end. This is kind of a paint-by-numbers sort of story where we've got a big time travel paradox involving the Borg, and we've got a future in which the Borg take over the entire galaxy, and of course we've got to stop that from happening. Now, as I've said before, I do really enjoy this idea of Picard as Locutus in the future, kind of getting his Picard persona back as he realizes, being the thoughtful person he is, that once they've taken over everything, the Borg really have no reason to exist. He calls them pointless by this point. He says they have no purpose. And I really like that idea. So these kind of human elements, they're in the background, but mostly this is very, very plot-driven stuff. There's one moment in particular that kind of bugs me about this, where 7 of 9 says, I have become a liability. Her whole point in this is to be sent by the Federation back into the collective as a fully Borgified 7 of 9 and be kind of an inside man for them. And she gets found out by the Borg Queen, and that causes all kinds of problems, of course, for the Federation, and gets a leg up on them. And basically, what Picard has to deal with is the fact that the Borg are always several steps ahead of them, and they're about to lose. We seem like we're in the point in history now, maybe, where Picard gets assimilated again, and everything kind of goes to hell. And 7 of 9 says, I'm a liability. And I took that right away, as you might, of course, to think that she's going to sacrifice it, or she's talking about sacrificing herself. She thinks that she needs to die for the greater good. And then in the very next panel, Picard just says, 7 of 9 is right. We've got to take her out of the equation. And basically he just kind of doesn't send her back to the collective and doesn't do anything with her. That's not much of a sacrifice. What happened to the moral dilemma that was set up right there that was kind of interesting? Having said all that, the person that's having the most fun on this book is obviously Caroni, the artist. His name is Joe Caroni. And this is just a lot of fun to look at. It's a bunch of action, it's a bunch of stuff blowing up, and it's a bunch of Borg doing really crazy, sometimes silly things, and it's all kinds of fun. And as you might expect with the Borg story, there is a lot of the color green. Anyway, I'm really interested to see this how this ends, but ultimately, it could have been a lot more character-driven. It's Star Trek. I would have liked more of that, and that would have required 6 or 8 issues. Next up, Daredevil, number 21. This is by far maybe the most important issue on Daredevil so far, because it finally reveals the big plot from the Spot and from the Coyote, and we learn how all that was put together. We find out in this, hopefully this isn't too much of a spoiler warning, that Coyote himself is not the mastermind behind everything that's been going on, with how he's been manipulating Matt Murdock to think that maybe he's insane, and people around Matt Murdock, like Foggy Nelson, to also think that he's insane. He's been doing it, as I suspected, of course, by using the Spot's technology to teleport different things, or not teleport. He uses the Spots, and he moves things from different places. It's kind of like teleportation, and he uses that to move various things from Matt's life that shouldn't be there, like those bones from his father and all those sorts of things. And what I really like is that, and I'm not giving too much away because we learn more than that, and what I really love by the end of this is that because Matt finally figures out that he's not really crazy, as was very, very much hinted at last issue, he and Foggy Nelson have a really serious heart-to-heart chat at the end. It's very real, and it's very heart-wrenching, and it was handled in an extremely human and, as I said, real sort of way. It wasn't what I expected. It was much, much more complicated than I thought it would be, and this is the kind of work that I have come to expect from Mark Waid, and as I always say, by Daredevil. Next up, All New X-Men number 4. I can't get enough of the series. I'm really, really enjoying this, and I could not be more enthralled with it. This opens with a very cool idea, which is Cyclops going through, present-day Cyclops, when he sees his past self, who has come, of course, forward in time with the other 4 original X-Men to try to talk some sense into Scott, or more importantly, I think, to show the original X-Men what has happened to their future. Again, kind of a present-day, Days of Future Past. We have Cyclops going through his mind for like 2 to 3 pages, every single possible thing that could maybe be causing this. Is it an illusion created by Emma Frost? What is it exactly? And I really enjoyed looking at his thought process. It's not the kind of thing every writer can pull off. A lesser writer than Bendis, I might have said, please get to the point. There, I really appreciated getting in Cyclops' head, and it worked out really, really well. We have some really interesting things with the X-Men's past selves and how they interact with their present-day selves. There's a little bit of the 2 beasts together, and I really like what little we get with them. I also really like this idea of the past Hank McCoy kind of trying to nurse the current Hank McCoy back to health. And the biggest thing is, of course, the way that Jean Grey reacts to seeing Cyclops, because she gets pulled into the future just around the time that she starts to even realize that she's a telepath. So those powers are really overwhelming her. She doesn't know how to control them, and everybody has these really high-octane emotions right now, and they're flooding her head, and she doesn't know what to do with it. And I'm finding all that really fascinating. This could have been so lame if it wasn't handled right, with bringing the past X-Men into the present, and it's just really, really engaging storytelling. And again, as I've been saying, I don't know how ultimately this is all gonna pan out. I don't know if it's going to make a great deal of sense when we get to the end, that the present day doesn't get totally altered by the past X-Men selves seeing the future. As it is right now, though, so character-driven, and all these, the original 5 X-Men all seem like very different characters from what their present-day counterparts are. Everything I would want to see being explored, character-wise, is being explored. Is this kind of regular Bendis decompressed? Yeah, to a point, but I mean, we're not getting a whole lot of really thick plot, thrown in our face constantly as we're going through this. But this needs to simmer. This needs to take its time. It's the kind of story where I want these character moments. I'm getting them. I cannot say enough good things about All New X-Men. Next up, Avengers number 2 from Jonathan Hickman. This still is beautiful, beautiful art from Jerome Opena. I'm enjoying the voices that Hickman has for both Tony and Steve, and I like seeing Iron Man and Captain America working together for a change. Maybe not for a change, but, you know, they're not constantly bickering at each other. I mean, we see their different personalities and how they handle things, and there's a great deal of emphasis on Tony being kind of the technical side and Captain America being more of the moral and ethical side, and I think he's got a really good handle on all of that. This is kind of a recruiting issue where we see them going to various characters as they're doing their big expansion project and trying to include more and more people as being Avengers. And what I really like is that Tony approaches this like a math problem, where it's like, these are the people that we need specifically to solve certain kinds of problems. And each character that they bring in has kind of a logo, and it seems that that kind of represents a math problem a little bit. It's like, you know, this person plus this person plus this person equals success, you know, and I'm really liking all of that about it. What I'm not liking about this is all the nonlinear storytelling. I really wish Hickman would get a little bit more linear. I'm not against nonlinear storytelling if I can follow it the whole way through, but I feel like Hickman has this thing where he knows where he's going. He's got things planned out. I've heard a lot. Eric and I had a conversation about this today, and Eric mentioned this to me, and I've heard this too, where he plans things, you know, 40, 50 issues ahead, this kind of big long-form storytelling. That's really great. I like long-form storytelling. What I don't like is where things get planted in such a way where you really will have to go back and read the entire thing when it's finished to really understand where these things go. And maybe it'll be fun if you've read it through once and you read it through again, but I don't always have the patience for that. And what irritates me about it in present-day Marvel is that you can never be sure if a book is going to make it long enough to have this kind of long-form storytelling. So, you know, Dan and I just started reviewing Simonson's Thor, and you know, a lot of things get planted in that, but you know early on where you don't really know where it's going yet, but you know by the end, because it got finished, that you'll probably know what all of it's for. It's also not jumping around in time constantly. I feel like Hickman has maybe a little bit of a difficulty deciding exactly what we need to know when. And so, this is probably going to be absolutely excellent when it's finished. Right now, I'm finding it somewhat clunky to trudge through. Maybe that's not fair, it's only issue 2, but I read a lot of Hickman Fantastic Four, and that's what ultimately kind of turned me off there, where I would get through 7, 8, 10 issues, and I'd be like, I just don't know if I'm following this well enough to want to keep on it month to month. Maybe this is the kind of thing that reads a great deal better in trade. Having said that, the storytelling is always from Hickman is really, really good. It's solid. I love the people in this. I just wish that it wasn't constantly jumping back and forth from present to past to further in the present, you know, that sort of thing. Anyway, that's maybe just a personal taste issue. I know that a lot of people are really, really loving this. I'm liking it, but it's the kind of thing that I don't know if I really want to read month to month. I almost want to wait until it's all finished. Next up, Ultimate Comics All New Spider-Man, number 18. So, I was ranting and raving for a while about this United We Fall, United We Stand thing. I haven't gone back and continued reading the rest of the Ultimates and the other Ultimate books during this, just because I've had so many other things I've been reading, and honestly, I kind of forgot about it. I really should have picked up more Ultimates, because I really loved the issue where Captain America becomes president. I'm starting to get a little bit sick of it in Spider-Man, because I want to get back to the story about this kid trying to be Spider-Man. Bendis is doing his very, very best to continue inserting that character stuff inside of this big thing where he's got to fit it into this event, and that's all working okay. It's just me, personal preference. I'm ready to get back to basics. So here we have Spider-Man saving Captain America, and that ends up being a really big moment for him, and it seems to be kind of changing the way people feel about him a little bit, which is really great. I'm not as much enjoying the subplot with his father, where it's revealed that well, I won't tell you exactly what happens. We're told, because it's kind of a reveal. We're told last issue that something happened with him and the people that tried to arrest him, the government agents. and he's just trying to get home to his kid. Something happens. It's a big deal for him. I'm sure that it's a big tragic, terrible thing, and I'm sure that that's going to really inform his character moving on, and will probably have a great deal to do with how he deals with his son if and when he ever finds out that he's Spider-Man. But in this issue in particular, I didn't feel like this was especially dense, and honestly, I really am kind of ready for this United We Stand thing to be finished. But it's all right. It's not terrible, and I do like what happens at the end with him and Spider-Woman, and I like that it comes out and acknowledges that there is something about those two together that she knows. I still felt like it was a little bit contrived the way it was thrown in last issue, but at least Bendis is dealing with it, and it's something that she's not prepared to share yet. I hope that when it's revealed, it's a really, really cool reveal, because it looks like we're going to have to really wait a while to find out what exactly it is she's talking about. Next time on Ultimate Spider-Man, we're finally going to get Venom, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Bendis handles Ultimate Venom with this new Spider-Man. So, kind of lukewarm recommendation for me. It's okay. I want to get back to basics on it. Finally, from me, we've got Venom number 28 by Cullen Bunn. Don't have a whole lot to say about this. It is the first issue of a new story arc that begins with a really cute scene between Flash and Valkyrie, who is dating right now, and I didn't realize that they were dating because I haven't been reading Secret Avengers, but apparently they have been. And I instantly like their chemistry together. Him dating a goddess is so extremely interesting. I find it especially interesting that she's interested in a human who is crippled, and she's a goddess, and she gods and goddesses kind of about perfection, and she's dating this guy who's actually kind of a cripple. Something about that hit me in the right place. I really like that, and I like how they're sparring, and she kind of does a move on him that's unfair because it uses her powers, and it has to do with the fact that he's a cripple. All that worked really great for me. It was really kind of fun. The rest of this is mostly just big over-the-top action with the UFOs, who I wasn't aware of. I had to kind of go back and look at them, and apparently the UFOs are kind of, Cullen Bunn likes to go back and grab the really obscure characters that aren't used all the time. They actually appeared in a Venom miniseries in the early 90s, in 93, and I read that back in the 90s, but I don't really remember it, and I think I have it. I kind of want to go back and look at it now. But anyway, the UFOs show up and they remember him, and that's kind of cool. These guys have all these kind of weird powers, and they each have like one solid color that represents them. I really love the colors in this issue, by the way. Silas is doing a fantastic job in this issue with just these kind of like each panel that they're really prominent in kind of lights up with their color, and it was a lot of fun to look at. Really pretty issue. Not real dense with material yet, kind of a setup thing. And the reveal at the end was really kind of creepy and eerie. I like that Bunn is continuing on this tradition that Remender started of really, really silly stuff mixed in with really serious stuff, and he's continuing that on here. And this is really good, just not real thick yet. So looking forward to seeing where it goes after this issue. And now it's time once again for Things Captain Logan Doesn't Read with Dan.
Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Things Captain Logan Doesn't Read with Dan. I have a huge amount of books to review for you guys this week, at least relative to the amount of books that I've reviewed previously on the show. It was a huge week for me. Marvel seemed to have released pretty much everything I was reading from them, save for a few books here and there on the same week. So bear with me as we go through 6 Marvel books, but I hope you enjoy them. We'll start off first with my favorite book of the Marvel Now relaunch, Indestructible Hulk number 2. This one is by Mark Waid and Lionel Yu on art. So here, this issue mainly explores the psychology of scientists by juxtaposing Tony Stark with Bruce Banner. Waid seeks to define here who Bruce Banner is, a man of science. We see Banner and Stark talking about what their approaches to their work are like, with Banner criticizing Stark for only working within what is already known, while Banner looks at the unknown and reverse engineers it until that impossibility becomes a reality. Applied science fiction is the name that Banner gives to his way of thinking. I really liked that Wade gave Banner a unique way at looking at his field of study that plays into his whole mad scientist motif perfectly. Wade also presents these men of science as a bit similar than they'd like to be as well, because upon meeting each other you can feel the jealousy and intimidation they feel from each other in the various scenes they share together, and it's great. It adds a lot of humanity to the two characters, and it shows that men of science, you have to be a certain kind of person to be who they are. I'd highly recommend Indestructible Hulk number 2. It's a fantastic read. Best book of the Marvel Now relaunch, in my opinion. Next, we're going to move on over to some very good competition for that title. We have Thor, God of Thunder, number 3. This one is by Jason Aaron and Asad Ribic, who does the artwork. This issue follows the Thor of the present, after following the Thor of the past in issue 2, tracking down the victims of the God Butcher, who has been apparently slowly killing off pantheons of gods who have been forgotten for thousands of years. This issue dealt with what the idea of morality and immorality means to a godlike being such as Thor. Thor comes to realize that even though gods are immortal, they can also be forgotten and be left without purpose. With no mortals to appease, torment, or protect, what is a god other than a being doomed to live for an eternity? This calls into question, is it somewhat good for the God Butcher to be ending the lives of these forgotten gods? Is he putting them out of their misery as a Viking would do to a warrior dying of fatal wounds in the battlefield? Or is killing an immortal simply evil and not morally reprehensible in Thor's eyes? I love the sort of questions being brought up here for Thor, because he hasn't really confronted them before. His immorality is always something that he's taken for granted, and we're shown with flashbacks from Thor of the past year that's been going on since he was, going around with the Vikings back in the day. I absolutely loved this issue, just as I did the previous 2, and I can't wait for issue 4. It's fantastic stuff. Next, we're going to move over to Hawkeye number 6. This one is by Matt Fraction, and we get David Aja returning on artwork, which is great. I love Aja's work. This one returned to the day in the life of Clint Barton, as I like to call it, approach that was taken with the first 3 issues. For people who haven't been reading the book, I'll describe it like this. It feels like Indiana Jones with a scope drawn down to the smallest level possible. It's entirely grounded in the everyday human experience, with some cool action sequences thrown in for good measure here and there, so we don't get bored, as Stan Lee would say. This issue is a Christmas issue, and it provides the reader with snippets from 6 nights before Christmas Eve in the life of Clint Barton, all jumbled together in the most logical way possible. The issue casts Hawkeye in a light where he isn't able to confront problems he has in his life at the source, or even head-on, but is noble in that he always attempts to clean up any mess that he starts. He employs this method in the issue with things so mundane as untangling wires in his apartment with Tony Stark, to dealing with the returning Russian gangsters in tracksuits from issue 1. It's a consistent and likable characterization of Clint that works wonders for making this book as much fun as it is. Fraction had also tricked me into thinking that this Hawkeye book is just a bunch of one-and-done stories with no real ongoing narrative to speak of. But this issue clicks a bunch of events together that had happened in previous issues, and pulls back the curtain a little bit to reveal something bigger than I had initially thought this book was. This is a great read. It's essential for people who have been reading Hawkeye thus far, as I said before, and I can't recommend this book highly enough. It's fantastic. Next, we're going to move over to Captain America, number 2. This one's by Rick Remender, and with artwork by John Romita Jr., 2 of my favorite creators working at Marvel right now. This issue boldly skips 1 year later from the events of issue 1, with Cap and the child Zola was trying to inject with the super soldier serum, now named Ian, hiding out in Dimension Z as fugitives from Zola and his henchmen. Captain America has never really been a character that I love. I like him well enough in the Avengers as a supporting character and can sympathize with the things he believes in, but I've never really read a Cap story that has interested me because nobody really digs into who he is as a human being, for me at least, in what I've read. But with issue 1 and 2 of this series, that's exactly what Remender's doing, and I've been loving it. We get more flashbacks to Steve Rogers' childhood here, juxtaposed with scenes of Cap trying his hardest to help this new kid companion he has survive in the harsh climate of Dimension Z, similar to the Great Depression that Steve Rogers was brought up in. As I said, there's some really interesting parallels between Steve Rogers' childhood and how he's going about raising this kid, not just in the Great Depression thing, but what sorts of ideas he instills in him that inform readers about who Steve Rogers is and what drives him to be Captain America. Every beat in this book is derived from the idea of hope and what taking that idea away or inspiring that idea in another human being can do, and how powerful it can be in altering the destiny of any individual. This book is fantastic. And I have to say, now after getting a couple issues or so of all of the major Marvel Now titles, I'm really impressed with the lineup that they've assembled here. Every book has been blowing it out of the park, every issue for me. I'm really loving this one as well. Next we have Wolverine and the X-Men, number 22. This one's written by Jason Aaron with artwork by Nick Bradshaw. This issue continues the story from the last issue, where the faculty of the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning were mind-controlled and sent on a rampage in circus-themed costumes. We also get the X-Men meeting and fighting Marvel's Frankenstein here, which is a clever throwback to X-Men number 40, where the original team did the same thing under vastly different circumstances, of course. This issue deals with paralleling the Black Bishop of the new Hellfire Club, who's being pursued by Frankenstein's monster because he's the last remaining member of Victor Frankenstein's bloodline. He uses this idea to parallel the Bishop with the mutant race, who are, of course, hunted down, detained, and murdered every day simply because of their birthright as well. We see the Black Bishop here forming a connection with Idie, one of the students that Wolverine had taken under his wing even before he had started the school, who Aaron seems to be positioning as the new Jean Grey, or the girl that everyone wants to be romantically involved in, and also through her shows some of the negative repercussions of Wolverine being a teacher that everyone always jokingly talks about in this book. I can't say much more about this without spoiling it, but if you like your X-Men a bit more lighthearted and goofy in the vein of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's original tone for the X-Men than the other darker takes on X-Men that we've seen recently, I'd give this one a look. It's easily just as good as All New X-Men in its own unique way. Really like this one. Alright, now we'll go on to the last book, which is Scarlet Spider, number 12.1, written by Christopher Yost, of course, with artwork by Neil Edwards. This issue is a pretty good jumping-on point, I have to say. That also forges new ground for readers who have been reading the book since the beginning, like myself. In this issue, we return to the human trafficking plot from the first issue of the series, where Kane finds a dead 14-year-old slave with the mark of Cain on her face, which is what Kane used to put on his victims during his stint as a murdering psychopath in the past, as we who have been reading the series know. He used to use his adhesive spider powers to rip a handprint of skin off the bodies of his victims, usually on the face. So that's what the mark of Cain is. It's kind of freaky. Here we have Kane once again confronting his past as he goes and investigates a killer using his old modus operandi. New readers are sort of filled in on what it is about Kane's past that defines his character currently, and we also get him coming to terms with the fact that he can never change his past, that he will never be as noble a man as Peter Parker, and that he's going to be the guy who will make the choices nobody wants their hands dirty enough to make in the interest of protecting the victims of society. He sort of puts his own spin on with great power comes great responsibility, which works well for his character, and I was glad to finally have some sort of revolution to this whole thing about Kane's past that has been running through the first 12 issues of the series so far. This one is pretty essential. It sets up the next issue of the series and forges some character ground with Kane. I kind of wish it was just issue 13, but it does fulfill the Point One Initiative's mission statement completely fine, so I can't really complain. Overall, enjoyable issue. That's all the books I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the reviews, and here's Captain Logan.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Really appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for watching. I wanted to mention very briefly one more thing before we go. And sorry I didn't have a Jason pick for the week, but I had so many comics to review, and Dan had so much that I didn't want to go ahead and do yet another one. But I do want to mention this real quick. Here is the hardcover of Countdown that just came out this week from IDW. I don't know why it took them 3 years to put out a hardcover of this. This was the miniseries that led up to the new Star Trek movie that I think made the movie a whole lot better, if you could consider it canon. And if you haven't read this, it's basically all the preamble from the Next Generation continuity, and it kind of sets up who Nero is and exactly why he and Spock have such a rivalry. It's actually really quite character-driven, and it's kind of a passing the torch thing from the original Star Trek continuity into the new Abrams continuity. It's very, very, very good. A part of me even likes it, dare I say, a little bit better than the film. And so if you never read this and you really like Star Trek, you really should give it a shot. And anyway, there's this really pretty hardcover that just came out this week. I had read that book. I don't know why I waited this long to finally buy a copy of it, but I'm really glad I did, because now I have this really awesome, pristine hardcover with this really fun kind of holofoil cover. Anyway, thanks everybody as always for watching the Comic Vault, for watching new acquisitions. I hope everyone has an absolutely fabulous holiday, whatever holiday it is that you happen to celebrate. And I will be going out of town for Christmas. This is our final video before we go on a short hiatus. So we're going to be back on the 31st of January, once again with the very beginning of Spawn Year. Hope you'll come back and check that out. And once again, everybody have a really great holiday. We're going to take a bit of a vacation here and go and see our families and have a good time. We'll be back to lots and lots of videos for you for 2013. We have so much in store for you. I really hope that everybody enjoys it, and I'm stoked. I can't wait to show you what we've got coming. Lots more rewinds planned in the future. And I'm going to finally go back to a weekly schedule on Rewind and try to bring you a lot more of that. We're going to have more live episodes of Geekvolution tonight coming to you also twice a month, as we have been doing. Lots and lots of other stuff. So anyway, thanks everybody very much for watching. And if you'd ever like to send anything to the Comic Book Vault for me to review, you can always send that to our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. Thanks again for watching. I'm Captain Logan, and happy reading.